So, hello everybody. Welcome to talk about responsive images in Drupal. I'm Shibin Das, and let me ride on the giants of AI because they are more famous. So today, earlier in the keynote, we saw a presentation about JSON API builder. So I'm the maintainer of Drupal JSON API parameters, which is the JavaScript module which powers that behind the scenes. But also, I'm not taking any claim about the UI. They built a really good one. And I also recently released revision graph, which is UI module which helps you visualize Drupal revision histories as Git graph. So yeah, you're more than welcome to try it out. But also, I'm the maintainer of Rift, which is responsive image formatter tools. If anybody plays League of Legends, you know where that is inspired from. Wild Rift, of course, yeah. So, and I work at Factorial, which is based in Hamburg. It's a Drupal agency founded in 2015, and I moved over to Hamburg in like 7 years back. And this is the rough roadmap of today. We'll start with why responsive images matter, and then walk through how Drupal core handles them, identify some real pain points, and explore contributed modules that makes this ease the path. And also, I will share some experience that I got from real-life case studies of working with multiple websites, and why also why I invented or I made this Rift module, and also go through the demo of using the Rift modules in a Umami demo website. So, why does responsive images matters? Because Drupal is a CMS where the content has mostly referred to the textual content, but we often forget that images are content too. As you can see, images speaks out loudly to, and they talk about the brand, the values, and whether it's storytelling, branding, or data visualization, images plays a big role. And recently, I see ChatGPT, not ChatGPTs, LLMs are also producing images which are correct from text point of view as well, because few months back we were struggling with trying to generate images with text in it because it was either gibberish or not perfect, but even that barrier has been crossed. So you can see it will be much more common that the content creators would be using images which are generated by AI, which has textual content, and with screen sizes and resolutions all over the place, we have to serve them appropriately. And that's what responsive images is about. But let's take a look at some user stories. Talk to your users, because once we build a website, we usually deliver them and forget about the content creators who are going to use the websites, or rather create content using the website that we built. So, so these are a few experts from the real life feedback we got from content creators, which are they would like to upload an image once and reuse it across multiple pages. And now this seems so intuitive. Yeah, media library makes it happen. And this is also something we have to keep in mind, because when we deliver responsive images, which is basically different images for mobile and different images on the desktop, to say the least, and this is an often overlooked criteria that they would like to reuse the image, and they would also like to have full control on which image gets displayed where. So the content they create looks good and as intended on mobile as well as desktop. So, and also, they would like to avoid uploading the same image in multiple sizes, because Yeah, just because the responsive images ask, I mean, the theory behind the responsive images is serving different image and different breakpoint, but we shouldn't ask the content creators to do that for us. I mean, come on. In Drupal, this can be done automatically, and then, yeah, this matters a lot to them. This makes them happy. But then comes the front-end developers who would also who cares a lot about the performance of the pages, because if it takes around 3 to 4 seconds to load the whole page, the experience is really bad, because nowadays the expectation is the page loads within 200 milliseconds. And so yeah, this matters a lot, because the images are mostly are the biggest data hog on a page, so you have to worry about, unless there is a video, of course. Then, yeah. Also, the front-end developers would like to work with predictable sizes images, because if they know the size of the image beforehand, they can optimize the CSS or whatever is needed to look them, the components or look good on the pages. So predictable image sizes and performance are quite important for front-end developers. Then we have designers, which are often forgotten. By the time we get the design, nobody talks to them most of the time, or maybe that's a different workflow you follow. And the designers would like to, and this is because most of the time the designs are handed over, but and they have designed it with certain aspect ratios in mind. But if this is not communicated to the front-end developers or the back-end developers or site builders, these often get lost. So in the design, so you might have seen, the content looks good in the supplied design with the demo mockups, but when the content creators are creating the pages with, it looks odd and doesn't adhere to the design. So this is where the aspect ratio plays a very important role. One of the common problems which I have noticed is, for example, if there is a list of teasers which are shown in a search result page, sometimes the images on a certain teaser is larger than the other one, and the row looks odd with different heights and all. So, but yeah, so this is where the front-end developers would like to have this predictable sizes, so the page looks good, irrespective of what kind of content it is being shown on the page. Then, the Drupal site builder. So, yeah, notice that I'm not talking about backend developers here specifically, the site builders. Site builders are, I started my life as site builders, so yeah, the term is very dear to me. So we like to ensure a smooth experience for content creators, allowing them to easily reuse images across the site, because that's a win for us. And would like to also adhere to the design systems, so that irrespective of how the content creators uses or uploads, what kind of images they upload, but in the end, the website should adhere to the design system. And we will also provide responsive images automatically, if possible, but while not compromising the performance. And that's very important for front-end developers, so it's important for me as a site builder. And again, it is often overlooked again that serving the right responsive images across various devices, and now we have so many different screen sizes, could also lead to so many images being created on the server, which has a direct implications on the the file size or space that you have to reserve on the servers. Not a big deal for sites which is serving hundreds of images, but if you're building a site which serves 10,000s of images, it can very well be over 20 GB per responsive size that you implement. So, what's responsive image now? So the images that works well on devices with different screen sizes and resolutions and yada, yada, yada. There's a lot of things nowadays, but I won't be discussing all of them. I'll be just looking at the topmost few of them. So let's have a quick breakdown into 3 major concepts of responsive images. The first one is scaling. So scaling is adjusting the image size proportionally based on the screen in which it is displayed. So if it is a screen which is like 400 pixel wide, so and you might not want to serve as image which is larger than that because it often leads to unutilized. It often leads to wastage of bandwidth that the user has to download an image which is larger than it is required. But if you supply a small image on a larger screen, then it can look blurry, which defeats the purpose of from a marketing point of view, even though it will have a good performance score. Not recommended. So then we have an art direction, which is quite tricky and often ignored. It's about showing a completely different image for different screen sizes to preserve the focus or the layout. So let's take an example where we have text. So this is not an example that you would find in real life much, but it is used to make the context more obvious. So here you can see one strategy, a vertical image which with some text was uploaded and which looks good in mobile. But as it is shown in a tablet or a large display, it gets resized into a non-optimal design layout. So it can also, and if you try to fix it with making the image use as much white space as possible, what happens is the image gets cut out in a way that is not desired. So these are the things. So this is the problems that you usually face after the the website is deployed, and you get bug reports like this, that the image doesn't look good, or it gets cut off unintentionally, and so on and so forth. So the part is here again is the aspect ratio. So as you can see, on the mobile in the previous example, a 9:6 aspect ratio was used. And on medium screen display, 3:1, and on the large display, it was a square image. Yeah. So, and then we also have nowadays screens with high DPI, which is basically there is more pixels which are squeezed into display in displaying the single pixel. And on such screens, to deliver a very crisp image, the scaling based on device width is not enough. You offer, for example, for a 2x DPI screen, which is quite common nowadays, you would have to deliver an image or display an image which is 2x, 2 times the normal width of the image. So yeah. So resolution switching gives high DPI screens sharper images, and low DPI ones smaller files. And so yeah. And this is an overview of various techniques which you can use to implement responsive images. One is one of the most popular one is CSS background images. Here, this is quite used in images which is shown in the background of the whole page as full width, full height images. And this requires some CSS knowledge to make it work properly. So it's not really useful when we implement a CMS where the images are dynamically served, and because they usually don't fiddle around with HTML and CSS, the content creators. Then we have a solution which is based on lazy loading, which implemented using JavaScript. So what happens here is the JavaScript on the client side, which is on the browser side, would detect okay, what kind of images should we show over here? So since it's JavaScript, you can go really crazy about optimization here and serve the perfect image, perfect sized image, or perfect aspect ratio image to the client side based on the thing. Since it's based on JavaScript, there may be a slight delay between like once the page is loaded, and then the images are loaded. So, but it's quite handy to use JavaScript solution for like lazy loaded images. Basically, these are the images usually which is shown like below the viewport of the screen, and yeah, they're quite nice. Then we have solutions which are based on server-side image styles. So this is basically using picture element, which is supported by almost all browsers nowadays. So in the old days, like the solution which was available which is still available to display images is using the image tag, img. And it allows, so the picture tag, which is a new one, a relatively new one, allows you to show a different image based on media query, which is, you can then decide, for example, on a mobile, you can have a totally different image, and if the mobile is in a vertical mode or a horizontal mode, you can decide to show a different image optimized for that particular screen size and orientation. And yeah, so, the full power of media query is available when you use the picture image solution. And here's basically, so what happens is, from the server side, you create a picture tag with all possible combinations you wanna use, and then the browser does the JavaScript part of it, which is deciding which one to use of that. And this is a really optimal solution because it only downloads a single image, even though you can configure like 20, 40, 50 images based on different conditions, but the browser ultimately downloads only one image to show to the user. So yeah, and this is also a very CDN-friendly solution because the page can be cached, and yeah, the browser would pick up the best possible ones. Yeah, and then there are also certain solutions which are based on proprietary techniques, which is provided by CDNs like Cloudflare, Fastly, and all. Where instead of using Drupal's resize or styles, they have their own solution to resize the image based on which is needed. Yeah. So now, before I go to the Rift module, I would like to go through some, what's there in Drupal core, and also touch briefly on, a few other contrib modules in this space, which solves some of the pain points of Drupal core solution. So, Drupal core solution is functional, which means you can implement pretty much almost all use cases of responsive images using Drupal core solution, because it supports scaling, it has a limited support for art direction, but mostly it's useful for almost 90% of the use cases, the art direction support that the core has. It also supports resolution switching. It uses the picture element, which I mentioned earlier. And so on the server side, this picture tag gets created with all the media query and the image mapping. And the downside of the core solution is the implementation complexity. So first, you need to have an understanding of what you want, and then figure out how to get there using a core solution. So it doesn't guide you through this is how you have to do it or something. So yeah, but it has all the tools that you can use to implement the solution. Yeah. So how it works is, yeah. The configuration of responsive images and how to use that in core is spread across. You have to do something in the in the content management part, where you select the correct view mode for a particular. For teaser, you need to select, do some adjustment, and for maybe homepage or for other highlighted teaser, you may have to do some adjustment to select the correct media formatter, and then you have to head over to the media to set up the correct responsive image form. image definition, and then you have to head over to the responsive image to configure all the image styles, and the media query breakpoints, map them basically, and create a responsive group. And then ultimately, you also have to manage all the image styles that is needed to implement a responsive group. So basically, you would have to edit around hundreds or 200 different pages to get this right. And this is one of the reasons probably this is often not used because it's such a pain to get it working and ignore. So and I already went over this. So and this is my favorite part, because for those who are wondering, this is a super mouse, and it is one of my childhood heroes. It's from a small part of India called Kerala. Of course, inspired by Superman, but this super mouse was abducted by aliens, and somebody experimented on them and on him, and was thrown back into the forest from which he was picked up. But he gained superpowers, and he started protecting everybody in the forest. So and I really loved those stories. And I often consider contrib modules to be like the super mouse who is able to solve the problems where the core is not able to solve it, often because, not because of technical reasons, but because of legacy reasons, or sometimes it's not in the scope of core to do that, provide this custom specific solutions. And and sometimes the contrib modules which later gets into the core, which is also an awesome thing, like views, for example. Our first super mouse, which I would like to discuss, is DreamImage, because once you configure DreamImage, which is it's a JavaScript-based solution, you configure it once and then forget about it. So, and configuration is almost a single screen, and it takes care of generating the image styles and also serving them, as well as dictating what scale of the image should be used by the using JavaScript. So it's kind of really configure it once and forget about it, and it will take care of responsive image. Really awesome. So that also explains the popularity of this module, because of the all responsive image solution, this has the most downloaded one. And then there are certain similar concept, but little different architecture, because DreamImage uses some custom controllers and techniques. So there is easy responsive images and DreamImages improved, which are available for you if you're very specific about those concerns raised. I mean, you can check out the module description to decide for yourself which one to use. Then, so DreamImage goes in the extreme end, you configure and it takes care of generation of a lot of configurations by itself. And if you're a little bit cynical about that, because sometimes you might have to deploy your website into 5 or 6 different instances, and you would like to have control on every configuration that is generated and so on. So there comes this hybrid solution which is available, which allows you to, which takes a different approach. It gives you tools to generate these configurations. And you can run a thrush command, and it will generate the image styles, and the performance is also really awesome. Because what it does is, unlike the JavaScript solution, it actually shows a preview image, and then it replaces it with a perfect image in the using JavaScript. So it makes, and the first image is embedded using base 64 encoding, so there is no separate request to the server. So it's performant as well. Then we have the tool that I'm going to talk about in length, which also does the similar strategy as core. That is, it uses picture element, and it is server-side rendered. And the main thing I would like to point out here from other modules are like, it have a full support for art direction. So the edge cases where the other modules fail to fulfill is like the advanced use cases of art directions, which I will show you later. And if you want those edge cases, then yeah, this module is like the one that helps you with that. And and here, just like image sizes, the whole configuration is controlled by you as a site builder. So you have like predictable performance and predictable behavior across all the deployed instances, because you can export that as config. Yeah. So this is an overview. If you want to take a screenshot, maybe the slides will be available later. So to decide, like, which responsive images to go for, based on your like, preference. Yeah. So let's deep dive into Rift module. So this is the screen where, like, I showed earlier, like, what you need to do to configure core responsive images. And this is what Rift does. It removes all those, like, you don't have to generate a single image style, no matter how many responsive group you define. You don't have to configure the image media entity, because the Rift module allows you to select the responsive group right in the field formatter for the media. So basically, you have to select the right formatter on the teaser of a content, and yeah. Then it replaces the managing of responsive images and definition with a single UI. So on a single screen, which was very, very important for me, you have a full overview of all the responsive groups you have on your website. You have full control on, like, which of them, what are the media queries, which are, like, showing, like, what. So yeah. So Rift UI is the first main feature of Rift, which is like one single screen to manage all your responsive groups on the website. Then it supports art direction, where it not only, like, supports the smart crop and focal point manual crop, which is basically two country modules, which allows you to define the point of interest on an image. You, as in a content creator, can, like, for example, using focal point, just click on the point of interest on an image, or using manual crop, they can actually draw a rectangle around the point of interest, so that when the image is resized later for responsive images or on different screen, for the point of interest is preserved. And but what Rift does is, like, it also allows you to use a totally different image on different breakpoints. And here, by totally different image, I don't mean using a different image style or different sizes, but a totally different image, as in you can use an image of a squirrel, and then on a mobile you can use an image of a pumpkin if you desire. But what this allows you is, as a content creator, you can, for example, start including tables in image, which designers could create. And for a large screen, you can use a table which shows, like, more columns, and in a smaller screen, you can, like, just use a totally different image created by designers to create the impact and all. And maybe also you can, like, show the information in a totally different way on mobile screen, which is much more pleasant for the users. So without coding, basically, just by click, 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 you can use these features. So to have a support for using totally different image for, yeah. This is one of the few edge cases where Rift module really shines. And this is what, like, I use the most, which is, if you have ever tried to debug responsive images, you know how difficult it is, because you have to look at the source URLs or screens or whatnot. So Rift has a mode, so you just select that mode, like placeholder mode, and all the images where you have implemented this responsive images get replaced by a placeholder, which tells you what width and height of the image will be used on those. So this allows you, and then you can, for example, you visit the page in a mobile, or just change the width of your browser to see how how your responsive settings behaves, so that you can catch some edge cases where you are serving really small images on a very large screen, for example. This happens more often when you configure responsive images. Yeah. Then, sorry. Yeah. And all these features are possible because of some architectural decision that was taken. For example, the first is aspect ratios and is mandatory. So when configuring Rift, this is one of the first things you have to do. You have to define all the aspect ratios that will be used on your website. And so basically, it starts with talking to the designers, and asking them, what kind of aspect ratios do we want to support? And this has an impact on, for example, the content creators' experience, because when content creators are now using manual crop to define aspect ratios, they don't have to define all of them. They have to just define the ones which are used in the website. So yeah. And the sizes for breakpoints are mandatory as well. So, and here's most of the time I used to think breakpoints defined in your theme are enough for defining responsive images. But what I found out is most of the time there is hardly 2 or 3 breakpoints which a theme defines, which is, okay, you have a breakpoint for mobile layout, and then for a medium tablet, and then for large desktop. But when you want to serve the right image on different screens, you have to think more than just the breakpoints defined in themes. The reason is we have now really ultra large displays, and also the images which looks great on let's say just a laptop may not look great on a very large display, because the difference is quite huge. And if, for example, if you optimize it for super large displays, even though it's the same breakpoint, on laptop you would be serving a much larger image. So Rift module, this is where the first customization of the Rift was written, because Rift, if you look at Drupal code, the breakpoints can only be defined using code. That is, you need to write breakpoints.yaml, either in theme or in a module, to actually use the responsive solution in Drupal core. So this is a deviation from core. The Rift module provides a UI to manage the breakpoints for the images, which means, yeah, it's custom implementation. But this also allows you to break away from the dependency on the theme. So not just, you are not limited by the 2 or 3 breakpoints, which is defined by the theme. You can introduce much more so that you can optimize the image delivery for larger screens. And dedicated image breakpoints means you can have breakpoints for cover larger screen. Then the third architectural decision was the Rift field formatter is applied on media entity, unlike field formatter is applied on media entity. So which means you don't have to go and configure the field inside a media entity to use different breakpoints. This allows us to, for example, implement a solution where you can have a totally different image on different breakpoints. Otherwise, there is a technical difficulty to do that. Yeah. So now let's dive into the Rift UI, which is the first and the most important feature, which provides you an overview of all your settings, as well as the responsive groups you have you define for your website. So it has 2 basic parts. First is the global settings, and then the view modes itself. So yeah, it's kind of like cheating that you have 4 or 5 different screens inside one screen now. But yes, but you don't have to go and click and figure out the other URLs. So it allows you to control and have an overview of all of them from a single page. That is quite helpful. Then, as I mentioned earlier, you have to start by defining the aspect ratios and the screens you have. And so you define the aspect ratios. It's simple, like you talk to your designers about the aspect ratios you have, and these are the aspect ratios which are used in Umami demo. And yeah, it only has like 4 of them. And then you define the screens, which is basically the width at which you want to use a different image. And this is a global settings, means you can define all the widths you want. You don't necessarily have to use this on every responsive group, but you define it once, and it is available for when you're configuring the responsive images. And also there is like a handy media query generator. So if you're not too tech savvy about what should be the media query, it should be a max width or min width or whatever, you can just press this button and then it will generate the media query for you. It's quite simple. Then you can define what are the things, which other things that your responsive image should switch decide upon. And one of them could be like the multiplier, which is basically the pixel densities or the DPI. So in future, maybe from now onwards, you might want to add another 3x multiplier over here, because that is also becoming common. And it's basically based on you can look at your user base and decide later to include 3x or 2.5x or whatnot. And then the file format, for example. So for a long time, right now, I think we have full support of WebP in almost all the major browsers in use. But there was a time when WebP was not totally supported in all these browsers. So you had to, for example, use WebP format, where it is supported, and then provide a fallback for JPEG in those devices. But maybe you can just delete the JPEG nowadays and then just use WebP for all. Yeah, but it's up to you. Because if you use this extra file format, remember the server will have to generate different images for WebP and JPEG. So you save a lot of disk space if you just switch over to one file format. And maybe tomorrow there might be another format, and you can just add them later. And once you configure the global settings, this is how a single setting for a responsive image now looks like, where you already have a row for each sizes, and then you get to choose whether it's enabled or not using this checkbox. And then you have to first decide what is the image width on those sizes. So 100 VW means 100 view width. So you can just, for example, if it's like a hero banner or something which is displayed in the full screen width, then you can just enter 100 VW for that. But sometimes you already know exact size of the image you want to use on a particular screen size. So you can also implement just the number. And then, okay, there is a mistake. This is a typo. Please ignore that. And then you select the aspect ratio to be used on those sizes. And so that's the main settings. And you can also give some extra attributes like loading eager, which tells the browser that download these images as soon as possible, because this is very important image. For example, this is something that would use for a hero image, which is shown in the viewport. But you may choose to have a different global settings where I think I can show. Yeah. In a global setting, you can set it to loading lazy, which means it will avoid loading the image until it is in the viewport. So this is a lazy loading, which is implemented natively by the browsers, and you don't need any JavaScript to do this for you. I mean, it does it for you. So yeah. Then after you have configured the view mode, and then, so here, like, I'm calling it like in a hero, because it allows me to pick it up later. You head over to your content, and in this case, the card where you select the Rift media picture and the view mode that you want to use over there, and that's it. So you define your global settings, like what are the aspect ratios and the sizes of different screens you want to support. And then the responsive mapping, like on what screen do you want to see show which image based on aspect ratio, and Drupal would create the appropriate image styles and serve it. So yeah. So yeah. So now that's about Rift module, and I think, yeah. So let's have a look at this case studies. We have this premium, we built this website for Okio, which is a premium luxury brand. The images over here are characterized by high resolution and professional composition, emphasizing on the aesthetics of and functionality of Okio's lighting solutions. What needs, you can see, like, this is the product, and here, like, the rest of the image is also very important. Because Okio being a premium luxury brand, they are, like, selling experience and not just the product, which means, and experience is depicted by, like, what is outside the product and how it is getting affected. So this way, I mean, Okio was very particular on, like, they have full control on exactly how the images are resized, and that's why manual crop was a solution which was very, very, very delightful for them, even though it takes a little more to configure them, but they wanted to go that extra step, so that, because that's represented by their brand. Yeah. Then we did some work for Boehringer Ingelheim, which is an enterprise corporate website. And here, the texts were more important than images, and images were just like a supplementary content, which was enhancing the content of the website. So the important part for them was mostly like space concerns, because more than 10,000 images were used, and it should be easy to curate the images and so on and so forth. So here, like, focal point was again preferred instead of manual crop, because it was much more user-friendly. Then we have worked on a product website for Dole, where the product was the central focus of everything. So, and ease of use, so after talking to the editors, we set up a focal point for their use, because that was more than enough for the images and imagery they were using on the website. And yeah, so the main lessons learned from these were, like, there is no one-size-fit-for-all. So decide upon focal point or manual crop after talking to your content creators, and and also how much automatic control they want on their solutions. Yeah. So since no sacrifices were made for the demo gods, okay, I will just, like, quickly show the demo. Of Rift. So it's Umami demo. You can just turn on the, so you can set up Umami demo and install Rift and turn it on, and it should be available for you. So you need to go to the configurations, Rift settings. Of course, you need to turn on Rift UI to take full advantage of this configuration screen, where you select aspect ratio, the screen size, and then later on you set up the view mode. So this is, again, for Umami demo. So for the hero of the Umami demo, like, these settings are, like, perfect. And if you enable, or you can enable or disable these things, based on your preference. So maybe it's kind of a trial and error to see like, which one works for you. And then over here, you can select a dummy image provider if you want, like a placeholder.co, and save it. And then if you visit home, yeah, all of them get replaced with the placeholder, and you can see it. Okay, maybe here. It uses a different image. So this is really good for debugging. And you can, once you're done, you can switch it back to combined image styles and do it. Yeah, there is nothing much to demo that it works. So, and again, stressing on the point that you get to have a full overview of all the things from here. You can decide, as you can see, like the same image was used for like lower breakpoints, so you just turn it off. You don't want that. And sometimes it even helps using a single breakpoint because the image size doesn't change, but it allows you to, for example, serve WebP and JPEG for that single image based on the support, and likewise. So yeah, there's nothing much to demo, yeah. But any questions? Yeah, I appreciate that.